In the previous videos, we kept everything simple by giving all the rules in terms of the key of C major. But the rules apply to all the major keys, so in the last video we introduced Roman numerals as a neutral numbering system. That let us generalize our rules over all the major keys. But there are also things out there called minor keys. Do the same rules work for them? Short answer, yes. Mostly. But there's stuff to watch out for. The complicated answer follows in the next batch of videos. First, let's talk about how to generate a minor key from our piano keyboard. We use this pattern to generate the major keys, but we need a different pattern to generate the minor keys. Instead of the pattern whole step, half step, we will use the pattern whole step, whole step. We also apply it in a slightly different way. For the major key, we applied the pattern going up, and then we applied the mirror image of the pattern going down. For the minor key, we apply the pattern going up, and then we apply it again to the top note of the first pattern. If we start with C, we get this collection of notes for our C minor scale. Really, you shouldn't panic at the presence of flats, but to make things easier, we'll work in a different key. If we apply our pattern by starting with A, we'll get all and only the white keys, like we did with C major. To find the primary chords for C major, we put C in the middle and counted out an equal number of steps. At the interval of a fourth above C, we found F. At the interval of a fourth below C, we found G. We do the same thing to A. In this case, we find the note of D at the interval of a fourth above A, and we find E at the interval of a fourth below it. And, like with C major, these are the roots of the other two primary chords. Here then are the primary chords for A minor. They also have substitute chords, and, as with the major keys, the roots of the substitutes are found a third below the roots of their primaries. We also have an extra chord hanging around, the G major chord. It will turn out to be another substitute for the E minor chord. The rest of the rules carry over as well, including the patterns for the cadences, and except for the addition of a new substitute chord, it's all parallel. So what are these complications that I spoke of? Well, first go back to the substitute chords and notice that the substitute for D minor is the B diminished chord. We had a B diminished chord in C major as well, and we didn't use it. We threw it away because I told you that the diminished chord was weird. Well, it's weird here too, so despite what I said just a minute ago, we have to get rid of it here as well. That leaves D minor without a substitute. Here's another issue. Play the A minor scale, up and down. It probably sounds okay, but it also probably sounds a little odd. Something's not quite right about it. What you're hearing is the absence of a strong leading tone. For comparison, listen to the first 7 notes of C major, played in sequence. Play it again. And again. And again. By this point, you're probably gritting your teeth. Play that final C, damn it, end the scale. You feel that pressure because B is only a half step below C. It leans into C. It wants to move up to C, and is a frustration to us when it doesn't. It's like watching a bead of water, waiting for it to drop, and getting really mad when it doesn't. B is called the leading tone in C major because it leads naturally to that upper C. Every major key has a leading tone, because the 7 note of every major key is only a half step below the 1 note. But in A minor, in all the minor keys, there is no half step leading up to the tonic. The 7 tone is a whole step away. That means it doesn't have the same inclination to lean upward, to lead into the tonic. That gives a scale a much more ambivalent climax. To give a minor key the same energy at the end, we typically raise the 7 tone to a sharp, putting it a half step below the tonic so that we get the leading tone effect. Now we do want to get to the A. And now that scale probably sounds more familiar, like something out of a Bugs Bunny Goes to Baghdad cartoon. Great, you might say. So let's change G to G sharp and keep going. But if we do that, then other things start to happen, like when you pull a piece out of a Jenga stack. The first thing that happens is that one of our primary chords changes. If we replace G with G sharp, then the E minor chord changes to an E major chord. By itself, that's okay. E major sounds better in the cadences than E minor does. But G sharp also shows up in the other chords. The G major chord that we put in as a substitute for E minor, that turns into a G sharp diminished chord, which puts it in the same weird category as the B diminished chord, so it goes out. And the C major chord, our other substitute for an E chord, that also turns weird, turning into something called an augmented chord. And if we get rid of it too, then we have only one substitute chord left, the substitute for A minor itself. At this point we have three choices. The first is to go back to the original A minor. That means we'll have three primary chords, we'll have a substitution chord for the A minor chord, and two substitutes for the E minor chord, and we can use the same rules that we were working with in C major. This will work, but you'll keep missing that G sharp, and so things probably won't sound quite like you want them to. The second is to replace G with G sharp, and let two of our substitute chords fall by the wayside. This will limit our chord choices, but what's left will sound pretty good, especially in the cadences. The third choice is to learn how to tame diminished and augmented chords. That's the subject we'll turn to next, but only after first tackling another subject.